Right, welcome everybody to another edition of the Influence Global podcast that shines a spotlight on the influencer marketing industry. And I'm delighted to be welcoming today, all the way from Colombia, David Perez, who is the host of the Audience Coach podcast, amongst other things. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Gordon.
So we're going to talk about the coaching community, particularly in the wellness and fitness space today. So tell us a little bit about what the audience coach, what are you doing, and also the podcast.
Well, the podcast originates from my experience and my team's experience as podcast producers. We have been working with health and wellness coaches and influencers for a while, producing their podcasts. And we have identified a lot of struggles and challenges and mistakes they have. So we created the show in order to start tackling those issues and giving them tools and resources and a little bit more help so they can have a better sounding podcast, a better strategy, and better results with their podcast shows.
What sort of things were you noticing that they were not doing correctly, or?
There is a wide range of situations. For example, audio-wise, they have like some of them recording very bad recording situations. The audio quality is not good. So when listeners are trying to get the information, it's hard for them to make up what the host or the guest are saying. And we also have, like, in terms of content, episodes that have like extremely broad topics, so it's very hard for the listener to connect with a specific piece of information or a takeaway or something that they need to learn, because the topic is just like the episode is just like a conversation between two people with no specific center or purpose. And the other thing is also the strategy part. Some of them consider like just putting the piece of content or the episode out there is gonna be enough, but actually there is a lot of work, of promotion work, that needs to be done afterwards, and that work needs to have a strategy, and you need to have a way to track that strategy, to measure the results. So it's pretty much in all these aspects that they have issues and struggles and mistakes on, and we try to address them by getting people who have been there before, who have tackled those issues, and by doing also our own research.
No, absolutely fascinating. And of course, over the last year, there's never been a bigger need to embrace mental well-being, has there? Because
Absolutely,
it's been a
yes.
real challenging period for a lot of people. And I'm guessing a lot of your people that you work with have seen their audiences rise through this sort of pandemic.
Absolutely, yes. Actually, the audiences have boomed. Like, they have grown a lot. The number of podcasts has grown as well. Like, a lot of people who are in different areas and who are producing content probably in social media or just blogs, or were not producing content at all, are now producing content since around like April last year, since the COVID pandemic started. And particularly in the areas of health and mental health, yeah, there has been a lot of need for this kind of content.
And do you think, because you've just said there's been a big rise in this, if you are somebody producing this content, there's an argument that says the more niche you are on a particular topic, the more that people will be able to remember you for it. And do you find that the individuals that are producing some of the podcasts are using guests, or are they actually, telling their own personal stories and using it as an educational vehicle?
It's a combination of both. Usually, people who get to be coaches or influencers in health and wellness is because they have arrived to that point through their own personal experience. Usually, it's somebody who was in corporate, or who had a kind of lifestyle, and they had to go through a hard time in their lives, which transformed their mindsets, and brought them to where they are. Now, to that, they add the experience of others, because now they start having conversations, they start networking with other people, they start interviewing other people who have been in similar situations. So that builds up, and you have all this compound experience available there for listeners.
And so, are you able to sort of cite some of the individuals that in perhaps are sort of killing it on the scene, and what strategies are they employing?
Okay, one of my clients, for example, is Liz Moody. She is an influencer herself in the area of healthy nutrition. So she works on a lot of recipes, and what she did is she had been working as a blogger, as a food blogger for a while, and then she decided to start a podcast. And we interviewed her as well, and she told us that the moment she started the podcast is when she best clicked with her audience, because like a book is a way to communicate with your audience, a blog is a way to communicate with your audience, but a podcast is super personal because it's your own voice and your guest's voice, so it's very personal. And she tells us that 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 piece of content or that strategy is what has helped her communicate better with her audience. Like she has had a lot of reactions, a lot of feedback, positive feedback because of that. So that can be a good example. We have also, for example, Rachel Mansfield, who also works in the area of healthy nutrition. She is a great influencer. I think she has around 500,000 followers on Instagram, and she has been podcasting for a while. The podcast has helped her a lot with connecting with her audience better, and it has helped her keep a connection with her audience, because as you know, the algorithms on social media, like you can have 500,000 influence followers, but you do not determine how many people you're going to reach for every post you publish. It's
Mm,
the algorithm that does. So she was telling us, for example, like she has 500,000 followers on Instagram, but the organic reach has dropped down a lot. So through the podcast, she has been able to keep that communication with her audience because she is the one in control of the channel, not an algorithm.
mm. That's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think as well, when we're all busy souls in our lifestyles, we connect with different things, don't we? I mean, I'll look at an Instagram post 1 minute, I'll listen to a podcast another, and you've got to be, to be really successful influencer, you've
Hmm.
got to be on all of these platforms.
Yeah.
You, and so yeah, that's really interesting. And what sort of trends are you starting to see with these influencers in the way that they communicate?
Uh, I don't see like a particular trend that has been happening. Usually, it's a a combination of platforms, as you mentioned.
Mm,
That's what they've been doing. So, uh, sometimes the core of their content is on the podcast. That's the core of it, and they use the other platforms, usually social media, to build or to bring people into the show. Okay, and also to lead people into their email marketing strategy. That's mainly it. There are also other ways they um, or other strategies they use to reach larger audiences, which is what we're doing right now, being featured on other shows, and that helps them in two ways. One of them is being able to help audiences that are beyond their reach at the moment, and also exposing themselves so other people can get to follow their own shows.
mm. And what about monetizing the podcast? What's your thoughts around whether or not they should accept advertising or any other form of sponsored activity?
Yeah, that's very subjective, Gordon. It depends on what your values are and how you see monetizing. For example, I have one of our influencers. She's a doctor. She has a large following on social media. Her podcast is really big, but she has rejected monetization through sponsorships because she says she doesn't want sponsorships to be like an influence in the kind of content um, she's producing. She considers sponsorship might be like a way of, or it might affect her trust because like she's providing medical advice or things that have to do with like very medical issues. So she prefers not to have sponsors. However, other of our clients, they do have sponsors, but only those sponsors from whom they have already purchased products or services. They have already used them before, and they already know like it's a good thing. So they have been through the experience like of using a good product or service, and they accept the sponsorship afterwards. So it depends on that. So that's one way of monetizing through sponsorship. That part is very subjective, and the other way, of course, is using the podcast show as an inbound marketing strategy, which is you have a set of products or services or programs, and then people start being attracted to whatever you have to offer, and they start buying your services.
Yeah. So arguably, if they've listened to the content, they like what you're all about, then it can direct them to an online course or a fitness program or something else. So that makes absolute sense.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, I mean, what does it? Presumably, the people that you work with aren't all influencers. How do you find that somebody that's a coach that's good at what they do, but wants to accelerate more into becoming an influencer? What are the sort of tactics that you've noticed, particularly?
Okay. That's very tricky because the panorama of influencer marketing is changing all the time. I think social media is a key element there. It's super super important. So one aspect that really helped a lot is having a constant content strategy that is consistent. Okay, like you going and posting a blog post or a social media post every week, every now and then is not going to work. So consistency is super key, and also doing a lot of PR, public relations. That is very important. Getting featured on niche publications, okay, magazines or blogs, or like being mentioned on roundups. That's going to be very important because if you're listed there, that means you are an authority. So I think it's mainly building that authority through your content strategy and then using that authority to being featured on niche publications that will help a lot to get you that recognition. For example, I have one of my clients, she had a podcast which was kind of a small show. She was featured on one of these niche publications, and then it boomed. It grew a lot, like pretty much overnight. But because she had already built that content base, she had already built that authority that gave her the chance to be there, to be featured there.
It's almost like when I talk to people and they say to me, "Oh, I want to become an influencer. What do I?" Because they've seen some of what's on other social media sites, or they've seen the holidays, they've seen the wealth, and they think it's relatively easy. And I say to them, "Look, first of all, start with something you're passionate about." And believe in
Hmm.
it, because authenticity rules in influencer marketing, and you're spotted as a fake very very quickly, um, if you don't create the right content that's relevant to your audience.
Yeah.
So true, isn't it?
Yeah, and it takes a lot of work and time. Like some people say, it took me 10 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah,
Like we see the stars and colors and like all the fancy stuff, the result of the process, but we don't know like actually many of these people have been working to get that or to achieve that 10 years or more.
yeah. No. I mean, I think consistency, you mentioned it, is absolutely everything. And I mean, one of the things I always used to say to influencers is when they can, how as a brand, how can we work with these individuals? And I would say, well, you've got to remember what's in it for them. It's not always just about money. It's about
Hmm.
bringing something that's unique, giving them exclusive access to something. And of course, that's with the influencer. But you could also argue that's what the influencer is trying to do with their audience in a way, isn't it? They're
Yeah.
trying to provide them with something different, unique, exclusive. And when they bring partnerships together, they'd like to feel that there's a discount or there's an early access to something or there's something a little bit different that they otherwise perhaps wouldn't get. Um,
Yes.
does that resonate with you?
Yeah. Also, of course, there is also a need to look for new ways to engage with your audience.
Mm, yeah, and obviously we're talking about podcasts today, particularly in the health and wellness sector. Um, and you've mentioned a few. Who are the ones which you would say are really at the top of the tree in the sector? That sort of are shining examples.
Well, I don't work with like, I mean, it depends on the niche. It depends on the niche. For example, I
Sure.
will say for my niche, we have names. Well, we have, for example, the two I just mentioned. We have Rachel Mansfield. We have Liz Moody. We also have Kelly Levesque. She is a very strong podcaster. I don't remember other names right now, but I think In particularly in terms of niche, I think the healthy eating and healthy nutrition niche is the biggest one when it comes to podcasting. Like it's bigger than meditation or mindfulness or mental health or other stuff. I think healthy eating is the biggest one right now.
That's interesting. And then and the reason for that is because the ones that are doing it are providing practical advice and tips. I'm guessing, are they?
Yes, yes, that's correct. They actually, many of them are cookbook writers. So they have been providing, besides just the content or the interviews, they provide recipes and they prepare the recipes themselves. They make tutorials and they post photos on social media so people know actually what the recipe is going to look like. And they are very careful about, for example, the ingredients they're using. Like they make sure the ingredients are healthy. If it's gonna be, for example, someone who is a vegetarian, so they make sure all the ingredients fit that person's diet. So it's not just the result, but the whole process and how the food is sourced. So that is important to them.
Yeah, and then from the healthy sector, obviously lots of people right now have been scared about the uh, what do we call it? The vaccine. I've lost the
Hmm.
words then. The vaccine. And what part do you think influencers in this particular sector will actually help allay people's fears about taking things like the vaccine?
I think that's a very delicate question, Gordon, because there are very strong positions towards the vaccines, as you might have noticed. Like some people for it, some people against it, some people like who are right in the middle. So far, like the people I've worked with have not addressed this issue, even those who are doctors or who are in the medical field. Uh, I think there is still a lot of doubt and like they don't feel confident enough to cover that area. Uh,
Mm. Is that because, and it's an interesting point, is that
yeah,
because it may divide their audience and it might, that it, because it's the big elephant in the room, though, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
it's,
I think one of the sides is it might divide because it's a very polemic thing right now. So there's a lot of discussion around it, and on the other side, it's because there is very little information. Like these vaccines are very new.
mm,
We are barely getting to know what their secondary effects are, what their side effects are, what consequences they have. So I think maybe influencers have restrained a little bit from talking about it because they don't have enough information themselves to be able to share that information. Uh, I have spoken to some of them, and some of them have told me, "Oh, I already got the vaccine," but
mm,
it has been in private conversations. But
mm,
they have not gone like in public and talked about it yet.
No, it's interesting because also lots of influencers, particularly medical ones,
Yeah,
were involved within the early part of the pandemic in getting people to wash their hands, socially distance. So
yeah.
we know in the UK, for example, the government actually worked with influencers to convey that message. And I might add very successfully, because the traditional methods of television and radio and other areas, particularly coming from a government, wasn't necessarily as effective as having authentic, inspiring influencers that younger people in particular look up to.
Hmm.
So I was really fascinated to see how those individuals, even on TikTok, there's lots of examples of people using humor, but actually getting a core message over. So I wonder what your take is on that.
I think it's very positive. I think influencers are not just a way of making money by publishing sometimes just jokes or like entertainment, but they are also a very good way to educating people and helping people in some areas. And I think using them, for example, using like quote unquote, like use is not a nice word, but okay, working with them to to
Working with
to
them, yeah.
promote this, yeah, working with it to promote healthy habits, and in this case, like motivating people to get vaccinated is a very good way. And I think it also is positive in the term that it reaches a wide range of people with different backgrounds. Like you can have influencers, like is a very wide term. So you can have people who have a middle-aged audience, people who have like a very, very young audience, people who are in their 18s, 19s, people who are in the 40s, 50s. and you can address all of them, but by using or by working with somebody they already trust
Mm,
and they already believe in, so that helps a lot.
no, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I mean, what's the future look like then for your, you know, living and working in Colombia? What's it like? What's it like in the influencer marketing in South America? Because I know in Brazil, in particular,
Yeah.
it's been huge, huge growth. In fact, my book that I've recently launched, we've managed to get it translated next year into Portuguese. So we because we know how important the Brazil is, but I'm guessing that's not just Brazil; it's wider than that. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so what's it like influencer marketing in South America?
In South America, it's a very, very big market, but it's mainly when it comes to entertainment, like those kind of influencers who do challenges, who make jokes, who do these kind of funny videos. There is a very strong market around them. Especially brands like products, clothing, food, candy companies, for example. Like we have like them promoting lollipops and that kind of thing, technology issues. Usually they promote a lot of the product based sector,
Mm,
and they use like they work mostly with these entertainment related influencers. The
mm.
other influencers, for example, if you go to health or to, I don't know, technology or other industries, they are still very, very small here. They are not so popular. They don't have that like such a big traction, but they do have their own sponsorships just at a smaller level.
But the great thing about podcasts, as we know, is that there'll be people from all around the world that will listen to this.
Yes.
Whereas you know, some of the traditional advertising that you might be seeing on television or radio or whatever is very, very country specific. And that's what I've always loved about this particular sector. It allows us to reach out to global audiences and you know, tell stories in their own unique and individual way.
Yes, absolutely. I've been able to talk with people from all around the world. It has been a great experience in terms of like cultural exchange, and also like to see how the markets and how the trends are moving in different countries in different areas of the world. And also, you are able to share that information with your own voice, and that makes it a lot more relatable for people who are listening.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, David, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much for your time on the Influence Global podcast, and I wish you all the best. And I think we're talking again soon. So enjoy the rest of your week.
You too, Gordon. Thank you very much.